House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 3 is just about the best and closest episode that we have gotten from House of the Dragon that very much resembles any episode of Game of Thrones. From the starting point of the intro, which is super akin to an introduction of a Game of Thrones episode, all the way through the episode to where we actually get characters splitting off from one another and actually telling their own stories. And that has really been what House of the Dragon has been lacking the most of. And it's mainly because of the bad time jumps. Like the first season of House of the Dragon, if they didn't have those fucking awful time jumps, they would have actually been able to tell the certain kind of story structure that Game of Thrones always told in the POV sections. But in the first season of House of the Dragon, every single time that the characters would separate and go their separate ways and go to different castles and lands, then in the next episode at the beginning, there would be a 5 or 10 year time leap, and it sucked because those were always great opportunities and moments to actually capture the essence of Game of Thrones. Fortunately, we're past the first season, and the second season of House of the Dragon has no time jumps to fucking worry about at all because they're not trying to play catch up. Now, House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 3 starts off, like I said, extremely strong with a very Game of Thrones-esque intro where it's two houses that intertwine and bad shit ends up happening, but the bad shit doesn't end up getting shown. It just shows the aftermath. It's very much akin and very well directed, very similarly to a Game of Thrones intro, where you know bad shit's gonna happen, bad shit happens, but you don't see it, and the aftermath of bad shit. And that is the perfect setup for this episode, because in all honesty, this is mostly a quiet episode. This is a setup of an episode that's not bad by any means. Honestly, this episode is great to be a plotting setup episode because it still resembles so much of a Game of Thrones episode, and Game of Thrones always had a shit ton of plotting episodes. Now, House of the Dragon, Episode 3 is, like I said, finally getting to the point where characters are starting to disband. We have Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, Alicent and Aegon and Aemon and all of her family still stuck in King's Landing with one another, although Criston Cole and Alicent's brother, Gwaine Hightower, they ended up separating to go on their little adventure, and meanwhile, when they go on their adventure, Laena ends up discovering them on her dragon, but after the promise to Rhaenyra that she would not interact with anybody if she sees anybody, they just kind of dilly-dally and hide in forests, and Laena just kind of fucks off in the air. But then we also have way more character development, not just with Daemon, who actually rediscovers his past with Rhaenyra, and I won't spoil that, but we also get the like of Aegon and Aemond in brothels. And the fact that the character development for Aegon the Weak is very, very reminiscent to the book, because they're really trying their damnedest to show you that Aegon, for how much he is trying desperately to look strong as fuck, he's very clearly Aegon the Weak, just like in the book. And it's not tongue-in-cheek in your face, but at the same time it kind of is. But that's kind of the point with Aegon the Weak as a character. His stupidity is meant to be in your face, but him as a character study, it's subtly done in a storytelling point of view. And a prime example is when he's in the brothel and he's trying to be the king of all, and he's trying to be kind of like the preppy jock at high school, and he discovers Aemon with his first in the brothel and still being with his first, which that intertwines between Aegon's character development with Aemon's character development. And honestly, Aemon is kind of pushed aside and relegated outside of this episode for the most part. He doesn't really do much in this episode. I mean, the brothel point was a strong character development, but that's really all that we got from Eamon's character in this episode. Really, this episode was still strongly focused on Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Aegon, and Alicent. Hell, even Otto Hightower didn't really make a presence in this episode, mainly because he's not really relevant right now. He's still in the story, and the thing is, for me, there are scenes in these episodes, and especially in this episode, there are scenes that are meant to draw you to think that something's going to happen to a character, and I get that they do that for non-book readers, but the thing is, most Game of Thrones watchers are book readers. We know when things are going to happen to said characters. Assuming, of course, they actually stick to the canon of the books, which for the most part, the showrunners for House of the Dragon have strongly stayed its course with the book. Now, first season kind of just expanded. It stuck to the story, but it mostly just expanded the story. Whereas the second season, it's able to course along on its own little storyline from the books because it doesn't have to worry about time jumps, like I said at the beginning of this review. And so, if I were to have any kind of negative for this episode, it would be just the fact that there are certain scenes in not just this episode, but most other episodes where they want to do like a hit and miss. They want to subvert your expectations, I guess, and they want to show you, oh, maybe this character's about to die. But then, book readers are like, they won't. It's not their time. And really, that's really the absolute only gripe I have with this episode in an otherwise excellently told episode. I love that this is the start of the POV storytelling. I love that they transition from Rhaenyra to Daemon, who's finally on his fucking own. Now, he's still working for Rhaenyra, but Daemon has always been the rogue prince who has always loved his family, but he's always wanted to do his own thing. He's always believed in total anarchy with ruling by himself. And that's fine. As long as he doesn't, fucking betray anybody that doesn't expect him to betray them. But overall for me, the thing is too, not just the subverting expectations parts in these episodes, but also we're 3 episodes into season 2, and Rhaenyra, now I have to say this, I believe the actress is Emma D'Arcy, great actress in this show. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against her performance, especially in season 2. Now with that being said, she's not really written to have been doing much of anything in this season so far. Now there are major events that happen throughout the storyline within the Dance of the Dragons. Yes, I'm just saying we're 3 episodes in, and really the biggest thing that Rhaenyra has done, story-wise, character-wise, has been meet up with where Lucerys was killed with Syrax, and they both mourn and grieve for their lost sons. That's really the biggest high point of character development that Rhaenyra has done in this entire season so far. So overall for me, season 2 episode 3, which is untitled still, I'll still have to strongly give this a 9 out of 10. It's a strong, very Game of Thrones-esque episode. It tells a lot of stories, and it's just showing you this is just the prelude of what's to come. This is a plotting, setting up episode, but also it's the start of branched out storylines, POV stories, and the storytelling is finally fucking there. It's very reminiscent of Game of Thrones. So for me, House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 3, very strong 9 out of 10. Thank you.